2, 1. Hey guys, welcome into the Stink Truth Podcast. I'm in the United Club in Orlando, Florida. Mike is back in studio. Just got done calling the Texans and the Saints game. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the leftovers. But Mike, how are you, buddy? How was your weekend?
That was great. It was great. And now that you're in the state of Florida, I suppose you could swing by Miami and you could pop the celebration corks with the rest of the 72 Dolphins, since there
That's
are
right.
no more undefeated teams.
I know. How
As both
about it?
San Francisco and Philadelphia go down, where you want to start? What was more surprising? I guess probably, well, I don't know. Which one was more surprising?
I think probably Philadelphia for me was a little bit more surprising. Not that I don't think the Jets are a good team from the standpoint of how great they are on the defensive side of the ball, and they are just absolutely thunder punching people right in the throats. And when you start to look at what they're able to do, the way they're able to cheat zones, the way they're able to fly around, it reminds me a lot of when Robert Saleh had the San Francisco 49ers as his defense. He was the defensive coordinator. The way they can get an extra 3, 4, 5 yards of depth in any zone and still trigger and make tackles and basically stop people that look like you're going to get a 6, 7 yard gain on maybe a shallow cross. All of a sudden it's a 3 yard gain and you're still kind of quote unquote behind the chain. So their ability to do that, their ability to, to break on balls, to understand kind of what they're trying to accomplish, because they're pretty simple. When you look at them, and this is kind of a Robert Saleh, that kind of genre of defense. If you look at those guys, those coordinators, their whole thing is, hey, man, let's limit our menu a little bit. Let's make sure that we're playing fast. Let's make sure that we know what we're doing. And the bottom line is we go global gym on you. We're better than you, and we know it. And so they look at it from an execution standpoint. We're just going to out execute you. You can know what we're doing. It doesn't really matter. We're going to be better at you or better than you executing our stuff. And it's funny because it's always the teams that I was a part of over the course of my career, whether I played in Washington or whether I played in Denver. We were always like, this is what we do. This is our identity. Yeah, we'll window dress it and we'll show you some things that maybe you haven't seen from a formation standpoint or a personnel grouping standpoint, but we're going to run the same 6 plays that we always run. And we're just going to be better at you than executing those than you are at defending them. And one of the cool things about that, Mike, I think from a player's perspective, one, it's the old keep it simple, stupid thing. And as a matter of fact, you know what? I used this on my open this weekend. You're going to like this. There's an old Neil McCoy song, and I use this on our radio show all the time. Small up and simple down.
Yeah.
And so I mentioned, hey, man, this is what the Saints are doing. They're going to small up and simple down. And the guy who wrote that song emailed me. So Neil McCoy sang it, and it was
Really?
it was a million, it was a platinum album, a platinum song. And so, they won awards for that platinum, this platinum song or whatever it is, hanging up in his office. And so the guy who wrote it, just emailed me today. And so I got this really cool email from this guy. I go, hey, man, I was watching your game. And so he goes, I've reached out to Neil McCoy. I've reached out to his producer. I've reached out to his all this stuff. But it was a really cool moment for me, just kind of throwing something out there. Me, I'm not thinking about anything. It just kind of comes to me and I say it. So a really cool thing. But getting back to the kind of principle of what Robert Saleh has been able to do is they just sit back and say, man, this is who we are. This is what we do. This is our identity. And we just feel like we're going to be able to out execute you. And the thing that's great about that, for a guy like me that's not real bright, but for any of us that are players, we're all PE majors. So, the whole keep it simple, stupid process. But there's nothing you haven't seen. So, if you just stick to a core thing, a core group of things that you do, and you're going to do them come hell or high water, there's not a look that you haven't seen that you haven't practiced that against. And it's kind of that 10,000 hour rule thing, right? I do it all the time. We do it all. I know every step. I know exactly what I'm going to do. And then here's the other cool thing about that. When you get into one of these critical fourth down situations, dude, that footwork has been something you've worked on a million times. The hand placement, the hat placement, and if they shift, you've seen it a million times. You've seen everybody try to defend you that way, or everybody try to attack you on, conversely on the defensive side of the ball that way. And when you watch the Jets, man, they created 3 turnovers over Jalen Hurts or off of Jalen Hurts. Um, they were swarming, and they got that turnover at the very end of the game. They created the opportunity for the Jets to score and win that football game. So I was surprised because, listen, ever since, and I think this is key, ever since
I know where you're going with this.
Ever since that Donna Kelsey came to that Jets game, ever since she was there, our guy Zach Wilson has really played a lot better. That Donna Kelsey has magic. You know what? She is. She's a. It's like old Cliff Richard song. She's just a devil woman, and she has got Zach Wilson under a spell. I just am saying.
Ever since seeing Donna Kelsey, Zach Wilson has outplayed Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
Beat the Broncos on the road.
Yes.
And outplays Jalen Hurts and beats the undefeated Eagles. So now do we look at the Jets a little differently? Maybe we don't write them off. And not only the way they're playing with Zach Wilson, but maybe even with the news that Aaron Rodgers was out there before the game throwing passes.
Did you see him? Did you see him?
He looked good.
Dude, he looked. I mean, he's not. Obviously, it's very ginger. But my God, like you, all of a sudden, you're like, wait a minute. Zach Wilson, hold down the fort. We're going to be all right. Although then it comes another dilemma. I know it's Aaron Rodgers, but if you get all the way to the playoffs with Zach Wilson, and then all of a sudden here comes, on the steed, here comes, riding in on the steed. Woohoo! I'm Aaron Rodgers. I guess you still make it because he's Aaron freaking Rodgers. So never mind. That was a stupid thought. You wouldn't say, "Hey Zach," or "Hey Aaron." You can back up Zach. He's really playing well.
Well, Tom Brady was a youngster who not very many people knew about, and Drew Bledsoe was the established quarterback, and we know what happened there. Was Philadelphia exposed in any way in this loss?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's very few teams that can do what the Jets can do to an offense defensively. So there's not that many that have all 3 levels covered. With Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams and all the different guys they have at all 3 levels of their defense. So I mean, they are exceptionally talented. C.J. Mosley's and they are really, really good. And like I said, speed and athleticism. And it's interesting when you watch them. They remind me so much of San Francisco, even going back, even to today, but even going back a few years when San Francisco really came onto the scene with Robert Saleh. The speed and athleticism, especially the way they played their linebackers, that underneath coverage, they were just so damn good. And the Jets just kind of remind me of that. They're a legit football team, and their offensive line, they're running the ball with Breece Hall. Offensive line's getting better. They're an intriguing football team, no question about it.
So I guess we need to pump the brakes on the Brock Purdy MVP train that got derailed this weekend. 12 of 27 for 125 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception in the loss in the rain to Cleveland.
Yeah, I don't know that there's anybody that's going to be clear cut right off the bat. Maybe Christian McCaffrey. This would be great for me to get, because Christian was great again, but this would be great for me to have a guy that's not a quarterback. Maybe Tyreek Hill. I mean, Tyreek Hill, that dude's a freak show. Mostert, the way he ran the ball the other day for Miami. So there's some other guys. Maybe Jared Goff creeps in there. Jared Goff has another big day. So I just like the fact that there are some other names, and especially other names that play positions other than quarterback, that at least we're talking about right now. So I think you just can't one game against a really good defense in the rain. You can't just take Brock Purdy off the chart, but I think it does open things up for other guys, which I think is awesome.
These Dolphins, they just shook off a 14-0 deficit, no problem whatsoever. Went on, blew out Carolina 42-21. And Mark, we've had a chance to see some really good offenses. We saw the Peyton Manning offense here in Denver, the 2007 Patriots juggernaut with Brady and Randy Moss. But this Dolphins team is on pace right now to shatter and to set the all-time scoring record in the NFL.
Yeah,
I wouldn't put it past them.
I think they'll do it. I mean, I just think Tua's playing great right now. I just think the overall, like you look at the pick your poison aspect of what the Dolphins are. They are so fast and they are so talented, with Waddle and with Tyreek Hill, and they are so good, at the running back position, the speed. Mostert can flat out run. Um, so they've got all kinds of dudes that can flat run. And I think a lot of what you're seeing is teams are going, okay, we're gonna have to keep a lid on this thing, and we're gonna have to play deeper than we normally would play. And we're gonna try to have to defend, and everybody says it, we're gonna have to defend the running game with a light box. Well, from a schematic standpoint, the way they run the ball, you're just not gonna do it. Like Mike McDaniels is so good at understanding the run game. He's going to put his team in a position to have, opportunities. And ultimately, Trey, or excuse me, Mike, about you're so worried about getting beat over the top with with that you basically say, okay, it's death by a thousand paper cuts. We'd rather than get our whole head sliced off by one big, sword. We'll just die by a thousand paper cuts. And Miami goes, okay, we're happy to oblige. And then all of a sudden you get down there and you decide, okay, now, we're gonna roll a safety in there. We're gonna get one on one on the edge. And this time, and Tyreek Bruce runs by you like you're standing still. I mean, it's unbelievable. So yeah, what they're doing, and I think we put so much of it on speed, and rightfully so. But there is a lot that goes in from a game planning standpoint that they're really good at. They're really good at creating opportunities in the run game, and you saw it go all the way back to when they hung 70 on Denver. Man, the the menu of what they were running from wide zone to the pin and pull stuff to the gap stuff, like everything they did, really played off of one another. And sometimes you don't get like you don't establish one thing, so there's no counter to it. So, for instance, if you're running tight zone, the backside of tight zone, the backside of tight zone, the top backs, and you're a defensive tackle, and you're fighting through, and you're fighting through, and you're fighting through, and all of a sudden we run the exact same thing. It looks exactly the same except now it's a double team. And so the whole footwork and everything looks the same as the backside of tight zone. And now, bam, we double team you and we roll you over the top. And now we're running power the opposite way. And we get you to play one thing, we get you to play the scheme, and you play the scheme, and then we get you. And I think that's what Mike McDaniels probably does as well as anybody.
You mentioned Detroit and Jared Goff as a possible MVP candidate. Not a bad game, of course, the other day. 30 of 44, 353 yards, 2 touchdowns in a 20-6 win over Tampa. I think we look for signs that Detroit's legit. And is this one of those wins where you come away feeling like, hey, maybe they are? You go on the road, Tampa, whatever you want to say about Tampa, they've been playing better this year than expected with Baker Mayfield. Defensively at home, they're still pretty stout. And for the Lions to go down there kind of a workmanlike fashion to get that win like that, I think that shows something, doesn't it?
Yeah, now they're sitting at 5-1. And I mean, you look at the Lions right now, defensively, they had a couple of things that early that bothered them. They weren't getting great pressure. Remember, they lost a game, I think it was to Seattle, where they gave up just a ton of big plays and things of that nature. And then, they've really tightened the screws down. They've been able to get to the quarterback. They've been able to sack the opponent's quarterback. But I'll tell you this, on the road in Tampa, in that swamp, and coming from Detroit and all that kind of stuff, that's a tough place to play. And let me just say that you look at Tampa with Todd Bowles, the pressure that Todd Bowles, the head coach, but he's also the play caller, bring on opponents from a blitz standpoint. The guy was a former teammate, or is a teammate of mine in Washington, and we always knew Todd Bowles was going to be a head coach. I mean, we always knew he was in charge, like he was in charge of our defense. Super smart. So he does a great job of setting up his blitzes, on attacking protections, really understanding what you're trying to do. And then ultimately, man, they have speed and they have athleticism, and they have, it's the speed and athleticism mixed with the scheme. They do a phenomenal job, and they've been in that scheme for a while, and they've got some really good players. So you go in and beat a Tampa team, and you hold them to 6 points, And you do that, put that kind of numbers up on their defense. That's big time, man. That's a big time win. I don't care what anybody says. Going into Tampa, they're sitting at 3-2 right now. Going into Tampa and winning the game, um, that's you're going to earn that. And so I'll give Detroit the tip of the cap. Like they're legit. And they're clearly the best team in the NFC North without question. They're going to run away with that division. But they are right there when you start to look at San Fran, when you start to look at, Philadelphia. And the one thing, because Dan Campbell, I love, and I say this lovingly, because Dan's such a meathead. Um, but he's like Dan's dumb like a fox. Like Dan is a really smart football guy. He just plays the role of meathead. It's like Gronkowski.
Yeah.
Gronkowski's a really smart dude. He just likes to play the role of meathead, and he plays it exceptionally well. That's Dan Campbell. He just plays that role really well. And Detroit, they're one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the league right now.
So based on what I saw, I think the Giants deserved another untimed down. Looked to me like Darren Waller was held in the end zone on that final play. What'd you see?
Yeah, I agree with you, but I tell you, how many plays do you get at the end of the first half and the end of the and, and the end of the fourth quarter before you just got to wave the white flag and say, "Listen, man, um, you guys got to take advantage of things. You can't play stupid. You can't do the things that they did and win a football game." So that the Giants, it just continues on, and I will say this though, I think everybody thought that Buffalo was just gonna
Oh
come
yeah,
in there and blow them away.
2 touchdown
Uh,
favorite.
yeah, and it does show you just the way the NFL operates. No more like every time you think you've got this league figured out, it just goes to show you it's such a week to week league in the way they operate and the way teams play. And so um, you got to tip the cap to the Giants because they came out and they played their butts off. Now they didn't win it. They got beat by a better team, but yeah, it did look like a little bit of a hold there in the back of the end zone, did it not? Well, such is life. I don't ever worry about that. Hey, don't let it come back or don't ever let it come down to stupid officiating, right? Don't let those guys
True.
beat you.
True. Do we take anything away from a week in the NFL that saw scores like 19-8, 17-13, 19-13, 19-17, 14-9, the game that we
Yeah.
just mentioned, 21-17, a lot of low scoring games. Any theories on that?
I don't know that I don't know that I have that many theories on it, other than every time I look up, you watch you watch teams, um, and it's interesting, and I'll go back to kind of what we started this podcast talking about, just keeping it simple.
Hmm.
You see operational issues. We always laugh about, oh, it's a terrible operation, and what was Sean Payton thinking, or what was this guy thinking? You see it from the standpoint of we run so many different personnel groups out there, so many different plays out there. So many guys are like, hey man, on this one, you're going to motion, you're going to go from the F to the Z, and you're going to go, there's so much out there because it's become so we got a motion on every play, we got a shift on every play, we got it. So if you're even off 3 or 4 seconds getting a play in, and then the quarterback gets in and he's not sure about the personnel group, and he looks on it like 3 4 seconds here, 2 or 3 seconds here, another 3 seconds here, and next thing you know, you can't get the ball snapped. Now you're calling a timeout. Or so I think we have become so specialized in many situations um, that operation slows down a little bit and creates some mistakes that I think that the simpler you are oftentimes, the better off you're going to be. But you know, instead of just going out and physically whipping people, we try to trick people, and and I think that could be part of what's happening. But it's interesting. The other thing is, we always talk about offenses and defenses and how defenses eventually catch up, and then the offense goes back through another cycle. Maybe we're in one of those cycles where defensively you're starting to catch up a little bit. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is next week. Everybody will score 45. Who knows?
And you'll probably quote lyrics from another song, and somebody will
Right.
reach out to you because that's how your life tends to work.
Exactly how my life works. Or maybe it's just that we're tainted by watching so much Broncos football. Maybe that's why
Good point.
we don't. Yeah, maybe we
Good
just
point.
are like, why doesn't anybody ever score?
Right.
Right.
And it was strange to see so many other teams struggle to score because
Right.
I thought we had the
Right.
patent on that.
Right. Did we give our game plan? Did Sean Payton give our Kansas City game plan to everybody in the league? I mean, it was awful.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Here's how to score 8 points.
Yeah, there you go. So anyhow, but what are you gonna do? Such is life, right? That's the way it goes sometimes. But by the way, and we'll discuss this later on in the week, but the moneymaker picks,
Oh, yeah. How'd they
um,
go?
2-1 for you, 2-1 for me.
All right.
You should have been 1-2, except you got a backdoor cover by the safety by the Raiders.
Hey, when in doubt, you can trust Max Crosby and that Patriot offensive line to get me the cover.
God, yeah, I was. You know what? I was just going to keep straight to the top.
Nope. The draw. We got a draw this week.
All right, we got to drop. Hey, listen, for everybody involved in the Sneak Truth podcast, we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Make sure you check us out. Check us out later on for also the leftovers for my game in Houston. I tell you what, the Houston Texans, they're an exciting football team. We'll tell you all about it later on. But for everybody involved in the Sneak Truth podcast, thank you so much. We'll talk to you later.